Hello. 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 I'm Carrie Michael. Welcome to Masterpiece Theater. This is so awkward for me, you guys. But I want to welcome you. We are so excited about having you all for this panel of incredibly talented Arkansans who are working as professional actors, and as many of you also are, and have come to kind of talk to us about their experiences in the industry, and we're just going to range all over. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you who these talented folks are. First up, Mary Faulkner Turriff grew up in Little Rock. She attended Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, where she studied theater, and upon the advice of fellow Arkansan Mary Steenburgen, you may have heard of her, Mary spent a summer studying acting at the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York City. After graduating from Northwestern, Mary moved to LA. Her first job was as a production assistant to Linda Bloodworth-Thomason and Harry Thomason on their network TV shows Evening Shade, Hearts Afire, and Women of the House. Mary's acting career began with a role on Days of Our Lives. She went on to act on primetime shows Melrose Place, Gilmore Girls. Girl, I've seen every episode of Gilmore Girls twice probably. Mind of Mencia, Relativity, Providence, Judging Amy, and Once and Again. She's done a ridiculous amount of theater. She's done improv, she's done comedy, she studied with the improv troupe, the Groundlings, and appeared in improv and comedy sketches at the Comedy Store in LA. Film credits are endless and include Slackers, The Falls, and Ladies' Room. She moved back to the South and did a bunch more films, including The Brian Banks Story, Poor Mama's Boy, Betrayed by My Bridesmaid, Discontentment of Ed Telfair, Patient Justice, God's Not Dead 2, Justitia, Good Time Charley, which we will be screening tonight, so check her out in that, and The Birthday Bully, as well as several 48-hour films. She's appeared in commercials. She's been a judge for the 48-hour Film Festival. She's just done an insane amount of stuff. And as the mother of a young adult cancer survivor, Mary speaks at events sharing her family's story and advocating for cancer survivors and caregivers. And stays active with competitive tennis, which I'm told almost stole you away, so we're so excited that you could be here with us today. Raiden Greer, who screened The Hollow earlier in our weekend, is a filmmaker and an actress known for her recurring role as Kathy Bates' daughter on American Horror Story Coven, which is the best season of American Horror Story, and I will not be taking questions. Appearing on NCIS New Orleans and playing supporting roles in both independent and big-budget studio films, holding her own on screen alongside heavyweight actors like Will Ferrell, Forrest Whitaker, Abigail Breslin, and Stephen Dorff. Barry Clifton began his journey in the performing arts by studying musical theater at the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith at the age of 13. At the ripe old age of 17, he took a detour from theatrical aspirations to join the U.S. Marine Corps, where he served until 1981. And following his honorable discharge, Barry spent several years traveling a long and winding road, exploring various paths before life, as it tends to do, led him back to his first love, and he rediscovered his passion for acting in 1991. In recent years, Barry has made notable appearances in both film and television, including God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness, Yellowstone, The Thing About Pam, General Hospital, Hellfire, and Sovereign. Clifton's most recent release is Taylor Sheridan's newest project, The Madison. Has anybody checked that out with Michelle Pfeiffer? He has also given back generously through We Audition, helping over 3,800 fellow actors with auditions, believing one should lift as they climb. I couldn't agree more. And not to be forgotten, last but not least, Jason Scott Morgan is an Arkansas-based film and TV actor with a background in local theater. Notable stage roles include Stanley Kowalski in A Streetcar Named Desire at Argenta Contemporary Theater. I caught that on stage, you were fantastic. R.P. McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest at the Weekend Theater, and Boggs Diamond in The Shawshank Redemption at Studio. Jason's on-screen credits include network television on Chicago PD and feature films alongside actors such as Harvey Keitel, Nick Offerman, Stephen Lang, Theo Rossi, and Michael Shannon. He appears in the upcoming Cape Fear on Apple TV and has just wrapped filming on Kingsnake, which is written and directed by ACS co-founder Jeff Nichols. So, you know, local guy you might have heard of. We've got some samples of their work. So, Johnny, roll the footage. I'm gonna get my head out the way. For giving us this time, y'all. We appreciate it so much. So, you know, thanks for agreeing to do this. I want to ask all of you, kind of just to kick off our conversation, you know, this same question, and I'd love to just go down the line, starting with you, Raiden. When did you know you wanted to be an actor professionally? Like, you wanted to become a working actor? Yeah, we got to turn it on. Sorry, I didn't turn it on.
They were not pre-turned on. They were not pre-turned on.
They were not. No, I'm sorry. We need to get better help.
I'm not in the AV department. I actually wanted to be a singer when I was a kid. I always thought that I would be a singer. But my dad was an actor, and I used to help him. We would do self-tapes even back when I was a teenager, like old school on the mini, like Sony Handycam. We were doing self-tapes even back then. And I would help him, you know, reading off camera with his auditions. And I started thinking, like, I can do this. This is really fun, actually. And then I started doing my own auditions, you know, shortly thereafter, after I realized I wanted to start doing it myself. And then it just turned out that I was naturally good at it, and I started working pretty soon after I started auditioning, and it just kind of flowed naturally for me. It wasn't something that I went out looking for.
Well, that's, you know, that's nice. Well, and also having your dad, you know, kind of around, which certainly helps. Kind of getting exposed to it early.
Yeah. Jason,
what about you? When did you know that this was something that you wanted to really put yourself into?
It was June 3rd, 1974. 9:08 a.m. at St. Vincent's. No, I did, when I was a kid, I all the way up through high school, I was doing stage productions, you know, Christmas in the Land of Oz, things like that. And then after school, like Barry, life kind of happened, and then like Barry, I kind of remembered how much I loved it. Around 2011, we were shooting, I think it was Anyone in Little Rock, and I was asked to be background as a bartender at Khalil's was the set. And I was back there polishing glasses, and I was like, I love this. What else, you know? So it was. I spent the next 6 or 7 years doing community, like smaller things in the college films, things like that. And I still had my business I was running full time.
Oh wow.
That I was very quickly learning to hate because it was in the way.
What was the business?
I ran Imagine Hobbies and Games for almost 20 years, selling.
Oh wow.
Dungeons and Dragons, board games, things like that.
Okay.
And, but I realized this is what I wanted to do. So eventually when I found a way out of it, I started pushing into this deeper. And I can't imagine doing anything now and being happier than what I'm doing right now. So it took a while because there's a lack of education around here, really. And in this market, in this area, you really have to learn by doing. So that means seeking out the 48-hour film festival, seeking out the indies, seeking out all these things that you can learn on set to have and get that experience. And well, that's the path that I took.
Yeah.
And that's led to now. So.
Great. Okay. And I definitely want to talk more about kind of, you know, if like what kind of education or, you know, entree into the industry would be useful to people, which is kind of why we're doing it. Mary, what about you? You've got a resume just from here to Saline County.
Sorry. You know, I was 15 in high school at J Fair here in Little Rock, and got cast as Emily in our town and never knew I could love something so much. I'll just never forget being on the stage and people listening to me and feeling that we were just in this shared moment. So I was addicted. But I too grew up here. Who makes a living as an actor? So I went to Northwestern in journalism and took this class for non-theater majors, this acting class. And the two professors said, you know, you could do this. I was like, really? You know, because I never had like a professional tell me that. And I came home and I changed my major. My parents were actually really cool about it because they had been with me at all the productions and done all the things. And then it was just little steps after that, like going to New York at Neighborhood Playhouse and having them say, you know, you can do this. And I just needed affirmation from the industry. I knew I loved it, but to know I was marketable and could do this. And so once I got enough yeses, I was like, all right, and just packed up my car, started going off to LA, and you know, here we are. Some years are better than others.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah.
Awesome. Barry, when did you know that this was going to be?
Do I get a mic?
Yeah, you do.
Well, you know, it's a very specific question you asked about wanting to do it professionally because, like Jason and Mary had said, I started doing it at a very young age. I was 13, you know, and my mom introduced me to theater, and I loved it immediately. I loved the people involved, you know, and the camaraderie and the just the relationships you build. And then, you know, I kind of pulled myself away from that for many, many years. And then got back into it, doing local theater and student films and stuff, which I loved. And matter of fact, I just finished a student film up at JVU. So I still love doing that, but as far as doing it professionally, that was a very specific thing when I was in God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness with Ted McGinley, John Corbett, and Ted O'Neill. And I remember seeing that they were in the film. I said, golly, if I could just be in the scene maybe with Ted O'Neill. Well, I show up the first day and all three of them are in the scene. And to watch the level of professionalism and commitment that they brought to the role. And I remember in particular, there was a scene where they did over the shoulder on first on Ted McGinley, then on Ted O'Neill. And Ted McGinley was into the scene just as much both ways. It was an emotional scene. And she thanked him out, thanks for staying in there, Ted. He said, well, of course. And so just seeing that level of commitment and the professionalism of the crew as well, just seeing that level of production, I was like, I want some more of that. I still enjoy all the other stuff, but as far as professional productions, I want some more of that.
See, that's kind of, yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear about that, you know, kind of that moment where you were like, I'm doing this.
And the realization that I could do it, like you said.
Yeah.
Because I remember on the way home thinking, this isn't supposed to happen. You know, but it
And
did.
there's kind of a perception, like, if it's supposed to happen, it's not supposed to happen to folks from Arkansas,
Right.
Yeah.
you know? And yet, you know, here you all are. So for the rest of you, kind of, what was the moment where you really were like, this has gone from being something I think I can do and really think I want to do to like, I'm in it. This is happening.
Well, for me, it was when I was in Los Angeles and was getting paid, you know, like, and able to put a bathroom on the house, or, you know, like, you know, have Sprite in, you know, make the baby. Like, I mean, for me, it was like being in the unions and getting health insurance, and that's, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is really happening. And it's a little harder to do it not in those large city markets, but it's possible, and there is work. But for me, I think for me, that was the affirmation of like, the bills started to get paid by it.
Yeah, like,
When I
you're
say
there.
like, yeah.
You're doing the thing you wanted to do. Jason, what about you?
My first professional experience was in '92 on the Ernest Green story here in Little Rock that Sarah Tackett cast, the Disney show. But the first, when I thought it was really going to be a professional thing was during filming of Antiquities, also here in Little Rock. I became eligible to join the unit at that point. And then at that point, the decision process had to begin on when to join. Not just that I could, but when, because being in a right-to-work state, it does limit your opportunities.
Yeah.
But it also opens up a whole new playing field for you. So you have to decide when you're ready because it is a commitment. But once that happened, then I'm auditioning for much higher caliber projects, which in turn forces me to up my game on like my self-tapes and all that sort of thing. And that, when the work becomes the work at home, it becomes a profession. So that was a professional click for me when the auditions became the job and not just looking to work on a film somewhere.
Okay.
So and then I mean, that's kind of where it is now. I'm just in shock that it's possible to do this. But we're sitting here, as Little Rock area, as area folks showing it can be done.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not rambling on that one.
No, that's good, and I definitely want us to really kind of go a little deeper into kind of, all four of you are members of the union. And I think it's definitely worth talking about. We have lots of people who are acting locally who are not members of the union or who are SAG eligible, but, so I'd love to get into that more, so we will definitely do that. But right now, I want to hear kind of, when did you know that you were like, okay, I'm an actor now, I'm a professional actor?
Well, I have a bit of a different journey than the other people on the stage in that I did not start out in theater.
Yes.
I started on professional film productions. And I felt like maybe my sense of, is this happening or do I really belong here, was being from Arkansas, because I started my career working on big productions in the Louisiana market, and I was still living here and driving down for in-person auditions and callbacks and jobs. And I do remember feeling there was a distinct difference between the local hires and the people that had come from LA. And the local hires were treated differently on set, and I felt different. And I was a little bit insecure about that, even though I felt like I'm as good as anybody here, and I certainly belong here. I felt like a bit of an outsider in that sense, but I do have a good story about this, because one of the first movies I worked on was a big budget movie called The Host, and Saoirse Ronan was the star of that movie, and there were some other well-known actors in it. William Hurt was there, and Frances Fisher, who played Kate Winslet's mother in Titanic, and she's been in a ton of stuff. So there were a lot of actors that were known, that were on this movie. And one day we were all sitting outside the soundstage in our cast chairs, and everybody started trading stories about like their most embarrassing moment on stage. And I started panicking because I was like, oh my God, like I don't have anything to say. Like they're gonna call me out for being such a noob, or like I'm not a real actor or something, So I was already embarrassed and like dreading them making their way around to me. And Frances Fisher gave her story, and all these other actors gave their stories. And then they came around to Saoirse Ronan, and she said, I've never done theater, I've only done film. And she didn't care, she didn't give a fuck. She just gave her answer, and that's my answer. And she was the star of the movie, she won an Oscar. And I was like, oh, well, I've never done theater either, and it's okay. It's okay to be who you are and where you're from and have the experience you have, and it doesn't matter. As long as you're good, you belong.
Honestly, that's a great piece. Like, if we're gonna pull that out and use that as an advice, it's fantastic. Just like, you bring what you bring, and it's different from what anybody else brings, and just lean into that and whatever. So, when, and you mentioned it's a little different when you're in the union, so I'd love to have you share a little bit about kind of how work comes to you. So how do you get, kind of thinking about like how you get auditions and how you get representation, and I know those are two very big, those are two big buckets of answer. But anybody who wants to kind of kick that off, like, talk about how auditions come to you.
Well, if you don't mind, I want to address the SAG
Oh, yes.
first, if that's okay.
Please do.
I'm fortunate enough to be on the board of directors of the Dallas-Fort Worth SAG-AFTRA board, and the Dallas-Fort Worth local covers North Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. And so if you have any questions about SAG-AFTRA, how to join, when to join, things like that, I'll be glad to visit with you. And as far as when to join, because most reps in Arkansas will tell you, don't join until you have to. And it's not that simple. There is some validity to that. And I was SAG eligible for 20 years before I joined, because it wasn't right. I had a full-time job, I had kids at home, I didn't have the wherewithal. I mean, I hate to say it, but this is not an equitable profession. No. It costs money to do this. You've got all your equipment now for self-tapes, but then all the union and the subscriptions you have to have and stuff like that. And I couldn't do any of that stuff, so it wasn't right for me. And there are a lot of union members that kind of tell you to join as soon as you can. And the one thing I would say about that is, like Jason said, once I joined the union, I started getting better auditions. And like the Yellowstone stuff, Pastor, he doesn't even see anybody if they're not in the union. You know, so it's different for everybody. But and if anyone is in the union that would like to look at being on the board of directors, please let me know, because I think this is going to be my last term on there, because I believe in the spirit of rotation. But anyway, SAG-AFTRA is wonderful. It's great protections. I've seen it at work during COVID. The director came down with COVID, and man, they shut that place down. And SAG met with all the actors, because they had proposed coming back to set, doing this, and this, and they asked the actors, "Are y'all comfortable with that?" And the lead actor said, "Not really. I want them to wear a mask and a shield." I said, "Okay, that's what we'll make them do." And I've seen them, you know, come in several places and really take care of us. So it's important to have, because this is the kind of industry where you've probably heard people say, "I would pay money to be in that role."
Yeah.
You know, and when you have that kind of attitude, which we probably all do to some degree, it's really important that there's someone there to protect us, because there are plenty of people that will let us pay to be in those films, you know. So it's important.
Yeah, well, you hear about, you know, kind of exploitative,
Mhm.
you know, practices of, and this happens to crews too. We were having conversations about this earlier, people getting way under and stuff. So, you know, having that protection, you know, it is important, yeah, like.
And also, tying back to your last question, as far as feeling, the feeling of being a professional actor, that's a big one right there. If you're a member of the largest union for performing arts, you know, that's a nice feeling to know that you're part of that.
It used to be a badge of honor to carry the card,
Mhm.
and I feel like that sentiment has been lost for some reason. There are so many people advocating against joining the union for people in smaller markets, and I don't agree either.
Why is that?
That comes up with my agent sometimes. Like, you know, we want to submit you, but it's not union. There's a wider berth you can go in on if you do go in on non-union roles. But as we're all saying, when you're on, it's not the same feeling on the set, and it's not the same hours, things that we've worked for, pay. But occasionally there'll be like well, actually, every project, if you really push for it, they will make it SAG, you know, eligible. They'll do something with the union to where we can. Like, you and I have done some little indies together that have been micro budgets or whatever. So it's just more paperwork for everyone. But I think if it's tough. You miss out on some things, but the projects I think we all want to be on tend to be union.
When there are union projects in the area, when there's the opportunity for local talent to get a role on them as well that makes them eligible to join the union. It's sort of a grandfathering thing. And of course, there's union, and there's, you know, SAG eligible, and eligible is often used as sort of a badge of honor, as like, well, I'm at this level, and that's fine. But there's some that will say I'm SAG eligible, and then they'll use the logos and things like that, and that's.
Ooh.
You know, like, I stand union strong. Like, I appreciate the support, but you know, you can't do that.
One thing you could do, that's
bro.
joint, yeah.
Write the $500 check because you didn't write the $251 last time.
Yeah,
Put it
hurts
right.
sometimes.
Yeah. So, but I like it. I mean, having union projects around, it helps elevate everything, and it helps sort of mitigate some of the predatory behavior that we can find, either abusive or predatory. There's combinations of both of those, especially on smaller sets, you know, in the area. So. I don't know, we're fortunate to have every location that we need in the state, and every piece of talent, every piece of crew that we have in the state to make every piece of content that we can. We just need to get them in here so we can prove it.
I think that deserves a round of applause. We have it. Right? And you're here, you know what I mean? Okay. So, I don't know. Some of you in the audience are going to be like, you know, I already know this. But for those who don't, you know, we're talking about kind of, you know, being SAG eligible. What is required to be, for those who don't know, where's the line on that? Eligibility.
It's my understanding if you are directed to speak lines in the SAG-AFTRA film. Now there are some, and I can direct you to the exact information where to find it. But there are some of the, like the micro budget. If you're in a SAG after micro budget, you don't get eligibility.
Okay.
If you're in a $2 million budget or higher and you're directed to speak lines, then you are eligible. Yeah, mine was a film called Chasing the Dragon. And the only review of the film I ever saw said this movie was harder to watch than it was to find. I've never been able to find it, but I had a line, and I had to go in a room, you know, with producers stuff and audition. The line was, "Water's back on," and that got me.
I got you there. Like, look over there. Like, congratulations.
Yeah. And one of the things, going back just a minute, as far as doing, feeling that I belong, it was when I got my first network gig. It was NBC, and it was the thing about Pam with Renee Zellweger. And my agent, Del Corral, were you with Del Corral for a while in New Orleans?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
No, I was with Claudia Spiker, New Orleans model down.
Anyway, so he calls me up and he says, "You booked the role," and he said, "Welcome to the show." And
Oh, hell yeah.
that was a really good feeling.
That's
Because
awesome.
that's different, being in network stuff. They got lots of money.
They do.
The food's good.
And the
Food's good, yeah.
It's good, and that matters.
Yeah.
Oh man, what was I gonna? Anyway, so you were talking about agents and the like. So kind of going back to sort of how the auditions happen, how the work happens. As you mentioned, in the union, it's a little bit different. Talk about kind of what the day-to-day business of getting auditions and auditioning is like, and how the work comes to you.
Start with that.
Anyone who wants to just
We're all
like.
gonna say the same thing, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I'm gonna say that I check, there's a notification from Actors Access, you've got a C-mail, okay. So, open that up, see what it is, there's a whole process, but I will research everyone on the productive team, I'll look at the producers, I'll look at the director. I've got one in the inbox right now, I've never heard of those people, but, I've looked into them. But anyway, you get that, you prepare it, and this is gonna be a lot of shorthand. You prepare it, you send it off, and you forget about it, and you wait for the next one. And you check your email because you check your email as a person, but you don't check your email going, did I get it, did I get it? You gotta let it go. Let it go. And once that audition becomes a job like that, you let it go. Then I had one for Cape Fear. I read a Bible verse in April of last year on tape and sent it in and heard nothing. And then August, my agent calls, she's like, "Can you be in Atlanta next week?" And I'm like, "This is with Javier Bardem?" "Yeah, I'll be in Atlanta."
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, so there I go. So it happens. You forget about it and you get a pleasant surprise every once in a while. But that's my segue, so somebody can jump in from here.
Yeah.
It feels like auditioning is sort of my job, and then when you get the job, that's the cake,
Yeah.
that's so, because they always, well, this sounds terribly ungrateful, I'm so thankful for any audition I get, they always come at the worst time, like, it's due tomorrow night, and it's 6 o'clock, and you have plans that night, and everything, but you cancel everything, and then you do it, and similar, like, this was a million years ago, but when I did Slackers in LA, auditioned for that a few months, and then literally they were like, "Can you be on set tomorrow at 6 a.m.? Yes. But you never know when they're watching it, and I've gone in 3 times on this show I really want that's filming in Nashville 3 times this season and haven't booked it, but you feel like if they keep bringing you back, you're doing something.
You've got to
But,
find
yeah,
the
well,
room.
I don't know. But it's all on, you can't do the room because it's
Yeah.
not there.
Was it difficult to learn to just, be a goldfish, as Ted Lasso would say, and just kind of like, you submit the audition and then you, go make dinner?
You have to.
Rejection's easier when you prepare yourself for the possibility of it.
Okay.
So this business is full of rejection, and if you you can't take it personally. You have to let that stuff go first. That's the hardest part, is the rejection. So do it, let it go, move on to the next thing, because that rejection will eat you alive, just like anything. But checking those emails, looking for text messages from your agent, whatever. I think the rejection is the killer, so you just let it go.
I feel like for me personally, I've been rejected so much at this point in my life that I only feel rejection stinging for about 30 seconds to up to 5 minutes. And then after that, I'm like, whatever, who cares?
There's a guy named Glenn Morshower. If you don't recognize the name, look him up, and I promise you'll recognize him. And he's been very successful for a very long time. So his outlook comes from that place. But he says he does not even like the word rejection. He said rejection is a personal decision someone makes against you or your character or something you've done. And he said if you don't get a role, you just weren't hired.
Yeah.
You weren't rejected. And I really like to try to maintain that attitude. Another thing he doesn't like is pursuing an acting career. He said, you don't call a friend and say, would you like to pursue dinner Friday night?
I mean, you might,
You just go to dinner. And he said he sees.
if your dinner is moving.
Yeah.
You might have to pursue
He's
it.
back in Dallas now, but he was in LA for a long time. And he said he would see actors come to LA pursuing an acting career, getting rejected, and they made it about 3 years. And they would leave.
Yeah.
I just jumping on that, when I was in my 20s and in LA, so many of my friends in my community, that was all we were there for. And we were just about the career. And it wasn't until I moved back home to Little Rock and developed a life and a family and things I loved. And then acting just was sort of something that came in. And then everything's not riding or dying on it. And I just so encourage, I don't know if there are any young actors in the room, but just to build your life, you'll have so much more to bring to your projects. And it's not about that one job. Because you can't rely on that.
It's a mindset, it sounds like. So, you know, like, would everybody agree there's kind of a mindset that you've got to get to, because, you know, to your point about rejection, right? There's not getting the role, and then there's what we're making not getting the role mean. Yeah.
You can definitely make up a story in your own head about, you know, what did they not like about me and why didn't I get the job? And it's any number of millions of infinite reasons why you didn't get the job. And I have a lot of stories about that in particular. In one case where I knew several people on the production, I knew the executive producer, he had texted me and said, I saw your tape, it was great, I'll be seeing you at the callback next week. And I never got a call to go to the callback. I asked him what happened, and he said we owed a favor to our financier who wanted to give that role to his granddaughter. So you never know how many times it has nothing to do with you. But to be fair to everybody who just get the feeling of rejection, there are a great many times where it's very easy to feel demoralized, or that the people in front of you don't care or even see you as a human being because you're an actor and you want something from them, a job. And I have a great story about this, but I'll just tell quickly. When I was living in New York, I had a great agent at that time. I was getting a lot of major auditions for big roles and series regulars, and at this time it was in person. A lot of the auditions were in person. And I was working as a bartender to make ends meet while I was, you know, getting into the swing of things in New York, and I worked at an Irish bar. And I begged my manager to let me work on St. Patty's Day. We were on the parade route. I was gonna make so much money. I begged, please. But I was really not a good bartender, so he didn't want to put me on. And I was like, please, I really gotta work St. Patty's Day. I'm trying to make some money. So he relented and he let me work St. Patty's Day. And then that morning, my agent called and said, we got you a meeting with Mark Sachs. He's a very important casting director, and it's this afternoon. And I was like, are you serious? I'm working today at the bar. And they were like, forget about the bar. It's Mark Sachs. You gotta go. Like, this is such a hard meeting to get. You have to go. So then I had to go back to my manager at the bar, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to go. I got a meeting with Mark Sachs. I know you don't know who that is, and I really don't either, but I gotta go, you know? I gotta go. I'll come back as soon as I can. So I took the subway. I went all the way back down to my apartment in Chinatown. I had some pages that I had to learn in, you know, the course of an hour or so. I had to put together an outfit. I had to do all of this stuff. It was totally exhausting. I got over to his office, and I walked in. I came in there to do the scene. And he sat behind his desk, and he didn't even look up at me. And I was in there performing a scene in front of him, and he didn't even look up. He sat there like this and didn't even acknowledge me. And then I walked out and never heard from him again, and lost my shift at the bar that day, and then got fired shortly after that.
Man.
And I've got 1,000 more of those stories as well. You know, walking in the room and nobody even looks at you and they don't even acknowledge you. You know, you have to be able to be very resilient to not let that affect you, but you are a human being and you're very emotional because you're an actor.
Sure.
It hurts.
But I mean, talk about the epitome of it's not about you. It's so not about you that the meeting that's you're in is not
It's not
about
about you, no.
No. So, thinking about working with casting directors and director, like I'd love to hear about kind of your experiences. All of you have such wide-ranging experience and you've worked with a lot of different directors. Talk about kind of your approach to working with directors and, sharing any, experiences that you feel moved to share.
I think if you're on the set, then the director has approved you and they want you there doing what you did in the audition and the callback. So overthinking it is probably a trap. Coming in and just doing what you did and being malleable. Being open to whatever, but not trying to write a whole backstory for this character the night before or whatever and going and change things. As far as the director goes, if they like you, they saw it, let's work with that. Let them direct you. You don't get up there, well, we said we weren't going to say this, but you don't get up and say, what if there's a world where this character is completely different? I think this world can exist. I think this can, don't direct the director. Just let your performance be what it was and be malleable and be nice. When you're on a set, be nice to people and say hi to people, and say hi to the grips and say hi to the PAs and the stand-ins and the people that are standing out in the sun making you look good and all that, and be a nice person. And the director will notice that, the entire crew will notice that, he'll be back on more projects, Be part of the community, don't make it about you. Because even if you're the lead of the show, you're there to tell the story, you're there to help the story move along. It's the director's story, it's not your story. So that's how I do it. I don't know.
Something I love about working in Arkansas is you might be on a studio film that's come in with a budget, but the crew is so, people, we know each other, and we've done an indie together, or we did a commercial together, and I feel so much more comfortable when I feel like I have nothing to prove because we already know each other's work. And so our Daniel Campbell, Graham Gordon, we have so many talented directors here, and there's such a shorthand when you've gotten to work. I've been so lucky to get to step on a set with them and have them say, remember that time when you did this or that. And so I love working here in Little Rock. I think there's less pressure than there is on a set in LA or New York, just for me, or maybe I'm just more comfortable in my life now. I don't know. But when people know, when there's a sense of knowing each other in community, it feels more collaborative to me. And I love that.
And working with directors, there are a couple things that I need to. I like to show up with specific decisions, who I think the character is, what I think the relationship is, and all that based on the information I was given. If I was given the whole script, I'm going to read it. If I was not, I'm going to give myself to the imagined circumstances, or make them up if I have to. But being malleable, being willing to accept not only the director's direction, but what you're getting from the other actor. And in particular, when I was in Sovereign with Nick Offerman, there was one of my lines, he kept stepping on my line. I'm not about to say, hey, Nick, let me finish my line. So I found a way to just interject it, and so that changed the scene a little bit. And the director didn't correct it or anything like that, and they're not about to stop Nick Offerman either, I don't think, because the scene was about him. And then there was one other thing. I think it was in the Madison, that clip you saw. I told that story, and I did 2 takes of that audition, and I watched it and I realized I wasn't having fun. I love telling stories. That may not be showing up here, but I love telling stories. And so I thought, I'm not enjoying telling the story. So I went back and did one more take where I enjoyed telling the story. And that's what they booked, so that's what I brought. And then when I gave the punchline about the shopping cart wheels on the outhouse, boy, I thought they were going to laugh. And they were like, huh. And of course, if you watch the show and you see the context, it makes perfect sense. But it threw me off for a second, and I had to adjust, and that's fun too. It's a lot of fun. It's scary, but it's a lot of fun to make those adjustments and be open to that. And two sides of the coin. You have to have very clear decision and idea of what your idea is, but be willing to make that, like you said, serve the story, serve the director, serve the other actors in the scene.
I'm not an actor, but preparation is important, and who told me that was this very smart actor that taught an acting class. Are you going to be doing that anymore, your acting class at the Wilson thing? so, but talking about, really being prepared, and sometimes the material that you're being asked to prepare for is just silly as hell. Like, so, talk about that a little bit.
Elevating the material instead of lowering yourself.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't remember what I said about that, but that's something I learned from my acting teacher in New York, is he was talking about in the context of doing commercial auditions, which are very often totally silly and really strange, and especially now in the era of self-tapes where you're like pantomiming multiple different things to the camera with nobody in the room, it just feels absolutely stupid. So that was the context that I originally heard that, was elevate the material instead of lowering yourself. Don't think of it as something really stupid you have to do. Think about the reason that you're doing it, and in that context, maybe you're telling somebody about this amazing thing because you're gonna help them, like for a commercial, maybe your motivation is that you're gonna help a friend, by letting them know about this thing that you like.
Your favorite herpes medication.
That's a real
Sure, yeah. But I find for those commercial auditions that, they're great to get because they pay bills. And is that I try to get this little kind of like, just jumping on something you said, like this kind of mind frame of like, you almost have to act like that okay, this is a little comedic. Like, you can't take this too seriously. I mean, you have to be as honest and as real as possible at the moment. But like, kind of like, there's a little, I don't know, I just imagine something like light about me. Like, I don't do like ridiculous things and say ridiculous things. But I'd still rather do that than almost any other office job. So, yeah, that's why I do it.
That's super fair.
Yeah.
Within the past year, I had my first audition for a serial killer role, which I'm really into that. on a major series that required brutal nudity and sexual content, prison stuff, and so for the first time ever, I actually just did myself tape in a jockstrap and sit it in. And my agent called a couple days ago, she's like, they just want to know if you're actually okay with the nudity. And at that point, I'm like, if this is the type of thing, when the project comes out, you see me differently forever and ever. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. And I never heard from him again, so that's...
Sometimes
But
it's
that
just
happens.
the willingness.
Yeah, just, okay, let's do it.
You're gonna get the call tonight, be on set tomorrow.
Damn it, no, it's already shot and I've seen it, so.
I mean, if y'all are talking about like an audition that happened in April and then you got the call in August, there's still hope for you, Jesse. Like,
My hope is that there is no hope for me on that one.
If you don't mind, I'd like to say one more thing about commercials.
Yes.
Because that, and kind of tie that in with SAG after, because that's one thing, and I don't remember, Yancy may have mentioned this to me, but if
Bless his heart.
Bless his heart.
We can get some
Don't make
applause
me
for
cry.
Yancy right now.
Don't make me cry.
Let's give it up for Yancy.
But I really enjoyed making some of the local commercials for like car dealers and things like that. A lot of fun. We did a spoof on Office Space one time, and did a CIA thing one time, and they're a lot of fun. But I was warned that if you do a local commercial for a Chevy dealer, and then there's a Ford national commercial, they won't want you.
You're out.
And that's real money. If you are a member of the union, or not a member, if you book a union commercial, that's a SAG after commercial, that's some
You
pretty
can't
good money.
do one for a competitor like ever.
And I do find myself like talking about money up here, and I have a singer-songwriter, 21-year-old son, and what I'm trying to get across to him, like you don't go into an artistic profession to make money, clearly, but you also have to live. So there are times, we do these commercials, and I mean, we have to find ways to support our art, and so I just don't think it's a bad word anymore. There was a time when I was in like my mid-20s, I'm not sure about commercial, but yes, amen, take any work. Maybe if you don't want to do nudity, that's okay. But I think work is work, and I'm thankful for it. Yeah.
But that being said, on the commercial issue, I feel like this is a very thorny issue as it relates back to joining or not joining, because if you join, then you're not able to audition for non-union commercials, but the difference in pay is significant. Significant is an understatement. So would you rather be doing commercials for a local car dealership where you make $500 and they use it for the rest of your life? Or would you rather be on a SAG national commercial for freaking McDonald's or the US Postal Service where you're making tens of thousands of dollars and there are rules about the usage fees? That's what the union exists for. So you're trading, you know, something really valuable, potentially if you're eligible to join, for something that's not as valuable, to do non-union commercials.
You'll never get residual checks if you're not in the union either, right? They're pretty.
Unless
I don't think
Is
I've
anyone that's not in the union?
I've been in the union since I was 22, I don't know.
But I mean, the calculus makes sense, right? So, you know, you're maybe not doing as much, you know, locally, but the stuff you get hired for is paying far more. And so,
I think that goes back to the question of, are you doing it professionally or are you doing it for fun? Because if you're doing it for fun, then don't join the union or do whatever you want. But if you want to be a professional actor, you have to be in the union. That's the bottom line.
yeah, okay. At this, I think that's a good point to kind of throw it to the audience. We have a wealth of knowledge and experience up here. Yes, right here, and I'll get to you next, Mindy.
Thank you. So on the line of getting lines and having to go and get all your stuff ready and then be there, and you have pages and just a very limited amount of time to learn, and you've been asked if you're comfortable with nudity. So, number one, would it not have been better to have just done the scene nude? Is that an issue? If you know there's going to be nudity in the scene and you just give that to them, would that have been a problem, HR-wise? And do they want to see your lines? Do they want your lines verbatim? Do they want exactly what is on their page, or do they want to know you're following them?
Would you like to go first?
Would you like to talk about verbatim or nudity?
I talk about both, and I have a problem with nudity as well. I was fired from True Detective Season 1 because they asked me to get naked on the day when it wasn't in my contract. You can Google that. There's some articles about it. But that's another good reason to be in the union, even though it didn't, I still got fired. They weren't allowed to do that, and I should have sued them, but they made me sign a waiver saying that I wouldn't sue them, which was a mistake. Anyway, back to your question about being word perfect. I find that in my career it's helped me a lot not being word perfect and making the material my own in small ways where it makes sense to do so, as long as you're still giving, you know, the essence of what's being said. I think it works in your favor sometimes to add a little something extra or to make something sound a little more you than what's written on the page if it's a movie. If it's television, specifically network television, which I don't know if that even means anything anymore now in the era of streaming, but it used to be the rule that for network television you have to be verbatim because they would have to be doing checks with you know, other people. If a line or a word was changed on set, you cannot change it because of FCC regulations of what can be broadcast. So for television, it used to be very important to be word perfect. But in that situation where you have no time to prepare, or virtually no time to prepare, you're just gonna hold the pages and glance at it and do the best you can. You know, it's more important to deliver your performance in the audition the way that you want to than it is to be word perfect, I would say. Unless they say something to you, and which has happened to me too. They said, it's not this, it's this.
Okay,
So, well, excuse me, okay, from the top.
let's try that again. Writers are very fond of their work, it turns out. Okay.
Oh, I was
Yeah,
going to touch on the
Yeah,
on
we
the,
want
on the
nudity.
nudity
not
just
we
for a
want
second.
nudity, but we
Just for a
want
second.
nudity.
It's
naked to.
And just want to do it.
to clarify, it was literally nothing but a jockstrap, but it wasn't. I don't think that. I think full nudity would have been. I think that's the way. I think it's inappropriate. I think it's unprofessional.
Unsolicited.
Yeah, and I'm not going to do that because that seems like something that would never get me in the room again if that happened. But I wanted to show that I wasn't scared. And I didn't really want to book the role. I just wanted to show that casting office that I wasn't scared. And consequently, I've gotten a couple more audition requests from them for different projects. Because there is the Telsey office. They do everything. In New York, they do everything. And I just wanted to show that, and it was a personal decision, like, am I going to go through this? I knew it would be a role that heavily relied upon prosthetics as well. So that, going into that helped a lot, But it's a personal decision, I think, and I figured I was at the point that I would just give it a shot. So,
One more thing I want to mention as far as SAG regulations, they cannot ask you to wear anything that you wouldn't wear to a swimming pool. So if they want anything less than a bathing suit, they're violating the codified basic agreement with SAG
Because
and
protection.
they should be reported.
Yeah, and they should be reported.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mindy?
All of you are amazing,
we love you.
and have long careers. I just wanted to know if there's been any change with the streaming and AI situation with the jobs that you're getting auditions for.
It's a great question.
Anyone
Or
got
do
any
you feel like
experience with
it's
that?
affected your careers at all?
I don't know yet.
It's on the horizon. What was the discussion about, we don't intend to use this for any AI purposes, and the verbiage in the contract that says, production does not intend to use your likeness for AI or anything like that. But maybe down the road, it's a good idea, maybe we will. you know.
Yeah, that's different from
So-
they're prohibited from doing it.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what I've seen, reading on We Audition for other, not auditions that I've had, but other actors. It seems like some of the verticals they're auditioning for were definitely written by AI, because they're not very good.
They're real bad. The verticals are real bad.
It's gonna be interesting.
But, I forget where, I thought about this during an earlier question, about elevating the work. When you talk about elevating the work, I learned a lot. There's this young actor in LA who was auditioning for a vertical, and he had done 2 of them already, and he was auditioning for another one. And he said, yeah, a lot of my friends give me grief for doing these verticals, and I tell them, hey, it's our job to make this stuff good.
Right.
And I love that attitude, you know. I don't like to talk, I just did, but I don't normally like to talk about scripts being bad, because that doesn't matter. If I want to elevate the script, so write your own damn script, raise your own damn money, make your own damn movie. You know,
Very,
if not, I can't judge.
Tell about verticals for people that don't know what that is.
Well,
Verticals.
Yes, for those who do
verticals.
not know.
That's
what a
something that started, I think, in the Chinese market, where they're streaming episodes that are maybe 3, 4, 5, maybe 7 minutes long or something. It's like very soap opera like content, and they're meant to be watched on your phone. And it was huge business in China, I think is where it originated, and then spread throughout the eastern part of the world. And now then SAG has a vertical agreement because it's getting bigger and bigger. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the attention span, you know, of the audiences. I watch my grandkids, you know, and I try to get my grandson to watch Wizard in the Alley, where I play a wizard, and you know, and he like watched about maybe a minute of it, and then he was done. You know, he wanted to go back to the shorter content. But that's what a vertical is.
Okay. One more. Yes.
Hey y'all, so kind of taking in everything y'all done and talking about, and us being here specifically in Arkansas, in this unique spot in the South, a place a lot of people don't think about in general and everything. As somebody who is having to work a full-time job, things are getting more pricey, that's not gonna stop. Pay is not as great as it is, but this is something to love. It's kind of a 2-pronged thing, but basically, what do you suggest someone to do to manage a work-life situation versus pursuing this more than just on an amateur level? And how do you feel the morale is right now in a place like Arkansas in the entertainment business in the foreseeable future? What's the temperature kind of coming up? Like production companies coming in, interested parties looking at us, because that ebbs and flows. Like you talked about Louisiana, which used to be really big, and then that kind of plateaued at one point when those the tax benefits dropped, and Atlanta's just right around the corner. Just kind of, what's the pulse kind of feel like right now for people looking into it?
Most of my TV and film auditions are coming out of Nashville, Tennessee, even some from Memphis lately. Might be because my agent's in Memphis, so I don't know, Atlanta, not. But I want to go back to your first part. I know you as an actor, don't stop. I think It's hard. That's why I was trying to touch on the money part earlier. It's hard. And it's also possible. And I don't have the answer, but I know quitting isn't it. And if you can find something you love in addition that people will pay you to do, or that you can tolerate and not lose your soul, and then keep writing or getting together with your fellow actors and keep creating. When I was in LA, I came up, I don't know if y'all know James Franco, he's done a ton of movies, and Vince Charley. I was in this acting class where like 10 people got series that year together, but we all were, I didn't, but we were all getting together and rehearsing all the time and being together, and like people, I've watched people kind of rise up together. So keep your artists close. Like I work with these guys, like, I mean, we're gonna film together tonight, but like, keep your artists close, keep working with your friends and people you trust, and don't stop. I think you've got a long career. And it's a crazy time to be a human, in my personal opinion, let alone an artist. But if you're called to be an artist or a lover of the arts, gosh, we need you.
That was a nice answer.
I'm a mom.
I love it. Yes, Mindy.
Two-part question. One, Braden might not have as much to say about this, but I wanted, and forgive me if I'm being offensive to any of the rest of you, but I personally want to know if ageism has been a thing that you have encountered recently. And then the second part is what's up next for you?
Awesome. Two great questions. I'm going to let everybody.
I haven't really experienced any ageism, I don't think. I have a sort of a unique look, and it's mostly white trash. So, I mean, white trash can be any old age. I haven't really experienced it yet recently, though. So I don't think that affects me as much. Well, and what was the second part? I'm sorry.
What's up next?
What's next?
Would you do
Oh.
nudity? Would you do nudity?
When I do nudity, I'll be 52 in 2 weeks. We got to get it over with quick. What's up next is Cape Fear on Apple TV, starring Javier Bardem, Amy Adams, Patrick Wilson. I can't say much about it, but I'm in the trailer. But you can't see me. But I'm there.
That's very intriguing.
Yeah, it says produced by Spielberg and Scorsese, and that's me on that screen. That was awesome, though. We just finished shooting King Snake. Well, I finished. It's still in production, and will probably be out next year. They've already got distribution in place for it, so that's going to happen quickly. There are also currently 2 Mar Vista projects, I believe, shooting in the area. 3 in the total area of Little Rock, 1 in Fort Smith that's about to gear up, and Northwest Arkansas always has opportunities as well. So keep at it, keep looking for those castings, keep working with the agency here, with Actors Casting Agency, and just keep plugging away at it, because we're doing stuff. I don't know how the budget's going to pan out for the next couple of years. That's a whole other panel, though, so we'll talk about that.
We can do that. We can have that conversation if you want to come back for that.
I'll come back for that one.
So to the rest of you, Reagan, what's next?
Oh, what's next? I was thinking about the ageism question.
Oh yeah, and also that.
I think for women, it's especially hard because, you know, as you just said, like you have a type that kind of works well for you, and doesn't matter what age you are. Women are either an ingenue or a mom, or, you know, like as you age, you're considered differently. And for me, I feel like I'm in kind of a strange place because I look younger than I actually am. And so people are sending me roles like for girls in their 20s, and I'm almost 38. And so I don't really look like I don't know how to answer that, but it is harder to navigate for sure for women, and I don't know what the answer is of how to navigate it, except to say that I think that women do their best work in life as they get older, and I think the best female roles are for women who are older, middle-aged to older. You know, that's when the good roles start coming in for women.
Put
not
us
when
on
you're
the
young.
morning show, the Apple show. I want to do that so bad. There's so many great roles now it's developing.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of knowing, part of it's marketing. Like, you do look young, I thought you were younger. But I think, I know, it doesn't have to be over when a woman's over 40. Like, I'm playing tons of moms, businesswomen. I mean, I think the world is opening up to more roles for us other than, you don't only have to be a cute 20-year-old, you know? So I'm excited that I am seeing kind of cool things. I don't have anything amazing to report, but I hope I will. Yeah, that's it.
We're all rooting for you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's ageism exactly, but I do know that I have age. When I first started, I was dad a lot of times. Now it's seldom that I'm dad. I'm grandpa now, you know, usually grandpa. But that depends on, you know, I still get dad roles if it's a older daughter. But, and as far as coming up next, I did read that Mouse by Kelly O'Sullivan has been picked up, has distribution now, so I hope that's going to be coming out soon. And then there was another film we shot earlier this year with the first-time director, Kristen Buckles-Cantrell, called Swim Fishy, with Lola Kirk and Miss Chalamet. I can't remember her first name. I don't remember the other names. Anyway, the name of the film is Swim Fishy, so that's what's coming out next.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you giving us your time, and are any of y'all going to be sticking around for a little bit? So people, I'm sure
No,
that people
I'm
have
leaving.
more questions, except for Raven. She's like out.
I'm
They
just
told us-
kidding.
Do we have time for one more question?
One more question.
All right, you are the last word, friend.
Oh wow, it's a lot of pressure. I've never done much acting, but I've always been intrigued in it. And in my painting career before now and writing, I've always wished I'd just done more instead of being so selective and spent too much time aiming. So if you were just getting started out, I'm sure there's a medium between it, but how selective would you be with what you do? I'm not like talking commercials. You said it's your job to make it better. If you read something like, this sounds kind of silly, but would you just spend more time in front of a camera if you could, instead of trying to weed out something you thought was like the perfect opportunity?
I don't get enough, well, I do turn down work, but I accept a lot of work because I want to work. And you always learn watching yourself on camera. I mean, things film differently than you think. They land differently. And even just doing my own self-tapes, I'm watching my auditions like, oh, yeah, that's not my good side, or oh, that's too much, or that's not, you know, what tells the story the best? And you only learn by doing. So if you have the opportunity and it doesn't compromise your integrity, why not?
I agree with what you said. If you haven't done much and anybody offers you the opportunity to do some acting, do some acting. You can be selective later.
I've done a lot of stuff that in the past that is not the greatest, but it's just shit I did. And like, you know, the Cape Fear is just going to be another thing on the pile of shit I did. So it's just all shit you do, and you have to do that shit, or else you haven't done shit. So go out and do some shit.
Go do some shit. And then you'll have done shit.
Get some shit under your belt.
I agree with what everyone said, that, you know, do whatever. But one lesson that I learned the hard way is if I'm going to do something, I've got to buy into it 100%. You know, I did something I didn't really believe in the story, and it came across. The professor at this school, I was grandpa, I think, or the dad, or whatever, and they said the dad was okay. And I thought that was, I would rather the dad sucks or the dad was terrific, but the dad was okay. That was, and I knew that they were right. I kind of phoned it in because I didn't believe in the story. So if I learned then, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to buy into it and trust the producer, trust the director, trust everything, and bring everything I got to it.
And just do it.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's the last word. All right. Please thank you for your time. And you know, how is it not going to be? Thank you all so much.
I did not say they all did it right.
You're so good.
We were all first.
Y'all seriously. Thank you for letting me.
And I didn't even say
I appreciate all of your sweet. Me too. That's the first one. Thank you.